Delta is here to help people in pursuit of their goals. And with the ease of booking travel on the Fly Delta app, pursuing your goals has never been easier. You'll also get notifications as you go, giving you peace of mind throughout your journey.
Welcome to NFL Live. Dan Graziano, Phil Yates, Damian Woody, of course. I'm Jack. The news of the day is Julio Jones. We're getting right into it. Julio Jones spotted working out with new Hall of Famer Terrell Owens. This comes after Julio Jones held out of mandatory minicamp last week in hopes of reworking his contract. Still 3 years remaining on that deal. As for T.O., retired 8 years ago, and he's still in the news more than the Kardashians. Here you go. R2, C2, uninterrupted podcast talking about his top 3 receivers right now.
My top 3, Antonio Brown. It's hard with Odell and Julio Jones.
Yeah.
And I say Julio Jones too, and maybe I'm being biased because I just
You're working with him,
I've
right?
been working out with him.
Yeah.
I've seen this guy. I understand, and for me, understanding too, like he's a guy that's been underutilized. Mm-hmm. You think about the Super Bowl that they lost, and then you think about what his stats were this past year. But let's go to the Super Bowl. They up 25. They lose to New England. Number one, it could be a coaching. You can factor in time management, but then two, you look at Julio's stats. He only had 4 catches in that Super Bowl. 4 catches for a guy that we're talking about the top 3 in the league.
All right, so Julio's a beast. We all know that. Julio wants to get paid like a beast. He's looking for this contract. There's no denying the talent. You can see he's averaged the most receiving yards per game of anybody in NFL history. But let's take a look at this. Jones has only caught 9 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. That's tied for 40th in the NFL over that span. Some players with more include 2016, would include Kenny Stills, Rashard Matthews, and Jamison Crowder. So there you go. So, fellas, we'll start with Julio. What do you think? Is he underutilized by the Atlanta Falcons?
No, I don't think he's underutilized. I mean, I think to T.O.'s point about the Super Bowl, they were up by 25 points, right? They should have been running the ball, but they didn't have the ball much. No, I don't think underutilized. I mean, I think, that's a diverse and exciting offense with a lot of different ways to go. They like to run the ball. They like to throw it to their running backs, and he's the game breaker. But I think the way they've played the last couple of years, they haven't really been in a position where they, like I look at Pittsburgh last year when they would get down and have to come back in the fourth quarter, and it's, where's AB? Where's AB? I look at the Giants, force-feeding it to Odell Beckham when he was healthy. I think the Falcons have been in a good situation where they haven't had to do that with this number 1 wide receiver that they have, and I think they use him okay.
I think if you're going to have any qualms with the 2016 Atlanta Falcons, which is part of this conversation right now, because you just gave that reference of 2016 and beyond, like one of the best offensive seasons we've ever seen in the NFL. So if you're having a problem with how they utilize Julio Jones in that year, you are simply nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking. Look back to this past season. I understand he had the outlier game of 300 receiving yards. You know how many guys had more receiving yards than him last year? The list it's not calculable because there was nobody. Julio Jones is still that prominent of a part of this Atlanta Falcons offense. Is there more he could do? Sure, because he's basically got limitless ability, but I don't think he's been underutilized in a way that is some sort of massive indictment of the Atlanta offensive staff. I think for the most part, he's doing just fine.
A guy holding out, Damian, like Julio Jones and working out with T.O., any problem with that?
First of all, I got to say that list, that TD list, made me nauseous just looking at that because there's no way Julio Jones is supposed to be that far down the list. But listen, I have no problems with Julio Jones being with T.O. Listen, we talk about all the, people talk about what T.O. being whether he's a good teammate or whether he's not. That's up to debate. But what's not up to debate is the fact that this guy's going into the Hall of Fame this year. How many people take care of their bodies better than Terrell Owens? This is a man that's, 44 years old, and just ripped to shreds. So one thing that we talked about with Julio Jones, and we're kind of nitpicking, is the injury situation. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that could be tied into, physical conditioning or whatever the case may be. Now, if T.O. can offer advice into how to better take care of yourself, if I'm Julio Jones, I'm all for that, to try to elongate my career. So I have no problems with Julio Jones being out there with T.O.
How should Atlanta handle this situation?
with T.O.? Like, how much latitude do they have? I mean, this is Julio's time to be on
with
his
the
own
contract as well.
I think that's the key question, right?
But let me ask this: let's say that Atlanta acquiesces to Julio's desires, which is to get a bump in his pay raise, maybe more guaranteed money over the final 3 years of his deal. Who's to say that just changes the dynamic that he has with Terrell Owens? As Damian just said, like, T.O.'s radioactive. We know that much. It's no mystery. But if you're going to cherry pick and say that, automatically the poor habits of T.O., being a selfish at times teammate and somebody that was difficult to be around, or going to rub off on Julio Jones, you can make the same point that, his ability to prolong his career and play till 44. He was calling out John Lynch on Twitter like, sign me this offseason. And I'm not sure if he was kidding, because he's in that good of shape. So it could work both ways. I get it. This is the time of the year where stories that maybe wouldn't register as much during a different portion of the calendar do. I personally would not be totally concerned.
And I think it's important to keep that context, right? Because the premise of this discussion is a report by the beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that said that the front office is uncomfortable with his relationship with T.O. The reporter, D. Orlando Ledbetter, who's very good and plugged in down there, didn't write that. He said it in a radio interview as part of sort of a laundry list of things that speak to the idea of the relationship between Julio Jones and the Falcons not in a great place right now. I don't think the Falcons liked seeing the pictures of Julio at Cam Newton's, charity softball. The Falcons want Julio Jones in Atlanta, in Flowery Branch, working out with them. That's what bothers them the most, is that he's not there. So what can they do with the contract? Bad precedent to give him an extension or tear up a deal with 3 years left, and I'm sure they don't want to do that. Field talked yesterday about the other contract issues they have on the roster with guys like Grady Jarrett and Jake Matthews.
Sure.
So that's tough. I think there's a little bit of an example in recent memory with regard to Antonio Brown and the Steelers when he had 3-4 years left on his deal, and he was upset about it, felt like he was being underpaid. They were able to make some adjustments, add some bonuses, change the structure, maybe add an incentive or two. I think that's the kind of thing that you look at if you're the Falcons and you want this player happy.
Well, Freeman's the highest paid running back. Matt Ryan's the highest paid quarterback now. Is there enough money left to make him the highest paid receiver?
Oh, you're going to find something. Listen, if you're a player, listen, I always say, like, when a player has leverage, some type of leverage, man, you're going to have to find some way to flex it. And I know that Julio Jones only, he has 3 years remaining on his deal, but, man, he's Julio Jones, okay? Like, you take Julio Jones off that Falcons offense, that's a drastically different looking offense right there. So I think these guys need to be of the mindset like Darrelle Revis. He was a master at capitalizing on leverage. Maybe that's what Julio Jones is doing right here.
All right, well, take a look at this. Julio Jones listed at 6'3", 220 pounds, which makes maybe looking at this even a little bit more surprising. Jones caught 5 of 18 targets in the red zone last season. That's 28%. Ranks him 121st out of 131 qualified players. Give me a break. Now it's time for our 5-in, 5-out series. Debuting this week. I'm starting to like this thing. Sorry if we insult your team here. Here's how it works. 20 of the past 22 years, 5 new teams have appeared in the playoffs. Last season, there was 8 new playoff teams. Based on that, more than 20 of our insiders and analysts voted on 5 teams in, 5 teams out. The 5 that we have out are the Panthers, the Titans, the Bills, the Falcons, and today the Chiefs. Here's a quick look at the 2017 Chiefs.
Today from Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, where every game has a playoff atmosphere, Reed Smith and the Chiefs have just one playoff win. Logan Ryan, a corner blitz, man wide open, Robinson, a touchdown. Chiefs leading 21-3. Mariota to the line of scrimmage, maybe across the line. It deflects back to him for a touchdown. From the 22, 2nd and 10. Mariota to the goal line, touchdown, Tennessee. Boos cascading down from the fans as the Chiefs lose their 6th straight home playoff game.
The Chiefs have agreed to trade quarterback Alex Smith to Washington.
The Chiefs had an asset in Patrick Mahomes. They wanted to get to him, so they were ready to move on from Alex Smith.
You watch SportsCenter or you watch those other networks and you see that stuff, but for me, I'm just trying to come in and play football.
I like the way he goes about his job, and he's, barring injury or so, I think he's got a real good future, and the city of Kansas City is in good hands there.
So here's what the Chiefs have done since that disappointing playoff loss. The big move came, Alex Smith to the Redskins, Kendall Fuller, and a third-round pick is what they got in return. They also traded Marcus Peters to the Rams. The Alex Smith trade marked the official beginning of the Patrick Mahomes era, of course. While offensive coordinator Matt Nagy left to take the Bears job, Kansas City helped Mahomes out in free agency by signing Sammy Watkins to a 3-year, $48 million deal. And the biggest issue for the Chiefs last season was on the defensive side of the ball, where they ranked 28th in yards allowed after trading Marcus Peters to the Rams. They used 5 of their 6 draft picks on defense. But we are talking about offense. We're talking about quarterbacks. If you add a quarterback, so in this case, if we add in Patrick Mahomes, they were 10-6 in 2017. What does 2018 look like?
I don't think it's going to be that much of a change. I'm thinking they'll go back to 9-7. The only reason I say that, quarterback Patrick Mahomes, I think it's going to be a star. I really do. I think he's a dynamic player. They added Sammy Watkins to go with the core group offensively. So scoring, I don't think will be a challenge with Andy Reid. Defensively, that's where they got to pick it up. They were ranked 28th last year. I still have questions, will they be able to improve enough to maybe improve on 10-6? That's why I have them dropping down to 9-7.
So you like Mahomes?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a star.
Mahomes.
I love Mahomes. I think he's going to be a star.
All right, then we'll go to Alex Smith, who just left the building. Redskins 7-9. What does it look like with Smith?
I think, Jack, it's actually going to be largely status quo, and it's not because I have an inability to differentiate between Alex Smith and Kirk Cousins. I think you get better ball security, better decision-making, and I think a certain steadiness the organization has been lacking. Now, Kirk Cousins may have more raw, natural talent than Alex Smith, but I think everybody understood it was time for some clarity with Kirk Cousins in Washington, D.C. or elsewhere. My question marks remain this. First of all, it's a very difficult division. None of us will be surprised if the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl next year. The Dallas Cowboys had a down year last year and won 9 games. The Giants fancy themselves to be a much more competitive team this year than last. To me, the question marks in Washington are who will establish himself as the most reliable passing game target for Alex Smith. Can it be Jordan Reed? If he can stay healthy, he has a chance.
It's a little weird when you have playoff quarterbacks changing teams like this, isn't it? I mean, it's crazy. All right, so Kirk Cousins, they were 13-3 last year. He's got to somehow build off that, win a Super Bowl or bust almost. What do you think in 2018?
High expectations, right? 13-3.
So you get that money, though.
But high expectations. You get paid. I got them falling back a couple games, 11-5. And listen, Kirk Cousins is a fine player. I've never been of the mindset that he's like this, franchise guy that can put a team on his shoulders. I think he's a complimentary guy that can help guide a team. Get Dalvin Cook back, which is a huge plus for that team. But also within that division, Aaron Rodgers is coming back, and he's going to be healthy. That's going to play a huge role in this whole mix within the NFC North division.
With that quarterback room that they had last year, this guy, 2 others, Bradford, Teddy. Why do you go get Kirk Cousins then?
They felt as though this was a player in Kirk Cousins that could help them win games in the fourth quarter, not just hold on to games or hold on to leads in the fourth quarter. And the sample size for Case Keenum was small enough that people around the NFL had some question marks. Was that a one-year aberration, or was that his realization moment? Hey, I belong in this league as a top-tier starter.
We can make that same case for Kirk Cousins. Fourth quarter.
I'm going to jump ahead, by the way, on this Case Keenum. We just talked about him.
Get there, baby.
And I'll tell you what, I think this team goes +3, not merely because of the Case Keenum signing. Now, that certainly helps, but the running game should be steadied this year because the offensive line will be better. I do believe the offensive line has enough pieces in place, plus the cohesion, and then defensively, they underperformed last year. They just did. And I get it. There's no more Aqib Talib in that secondary, for example. And, there are some question marks as to who emerges immediately as the number 2 pass rusher opposite of Von Miller. It's probably going to be Bradley Chubb, but they've got a lot of depth there. But to me, with a better running game, an improved offensive line, and decidedly better quarterback play, the Broncos can creep back to 500. Maybe even compete for a second wildcard spot in the AFC.
I'm with you. Bradley Chubb, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Is he in that leader bar before we get going or no?
I think you always look at, when you talk about Defensive Rookie of the Year, you always want to look at pass rushers or those defensive backs. That's where you want to look first.
Yep, all these quarterbacks, Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum combined for 60%. How about this? 60% of their starts threw for more than 50 touchdowns more than they did interceptions. All 3 of the guys can play. That's what we're saying.
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee-oh! You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
New coach, new role for Patrick Peterson. He had this to say about what he'll be doing defensively as head coach Steve Wilks planned to move him around. He said it should be fun. I'm looking to make a ton of plays this year. I'm looking to start jumping routes now. I'm looking to be a little bit more aggressive off the ball and be the same as I am when I'm in the receiver's face. And we know who he is when he is in the receiver's face. Here we go. This is what some notable receivers have done against Patrick Peterson last season. And see all this. Notice none of these guys have reached that 100-yard mark. In fact, Peterson helped limit T.Y. Hilton, Dez Bryant, Alshon Jeffrey, all to under 50 yards last season. So what we mentioned his new role this year. And think of it a little like Josh Norman. So he's not so much going to be stuck on one guy, guarding one guy, Revis Island style. He's going to play off a little bit, have some opportunities. What do you think, Damian, of the new role?
I actually like it because if you look at their defensive philosophy, it kind of comes from that Carolina style where the emphasis is more on the front, with Chandler Jones and company. So they're going to put him in a lot of different positions where, the opposition won't be able to, he plays on this side of the field, and then they can scheme up some other things. He's going to be all over the place. So I think overall it will benefit him moving forward as far as his career is concerned.
There are going to be plays within this defensive scheme in which the unbelievable skills that Patrick Peterson has is not mitigated, but it's not totally utilized as well. But that's by design. There are also going to be plays where, unlike in previous systems he has played in, Peterson's going to have the opportunity to, as he said, jump some routes, take some calculated risks. And as I believe it was Calais Campbell said, when he gets the ball in his own hands with an interception, he's going 6 points the other way. Right. So, yes, there are going to be some differences in the way that he is utilized, but make no mistake about it, he's still going to be one of the most dominant defensive players in the league.
I think that secondary lacks a little bit of the depth that we've seen it have in past years. The loss of Tyrann Mathieu is a big one for them, and even if you weren't changing coaches and defensive schemes, you'd want to look at ways to mitigate that. And if you see a guy in Patrick Peterson who might be able to do more than what he's been asked to do, then maybe move him around a little bit, and maybe that helps you cover that a little bit. But fundamentally, it's a philosophy change, right? Like some defensive coaches will like to put their top corner on the other team's top receiver. That's your assignment for the week. Study that guy, shut him down. And other coaches want to move them around, give the cornerbacks help, not put them on islands. It seems like Steve Wilks, and he's had some success doing this in Carolina, likes it that second way.
So we asked him, who's the guy that keeps you up at night? Talking about those receivers, who would you say, who is the toughest guy to cover in the NFL, based on what you see?
Antonio Brown. I mean, you're talking about a guy he is so sudden in his routes. And even with double teams, I mean, you see it all the time. He's constantly doubled, but he still finds a way to get open. And that's just a testament to route running, obviously being on the same page as Ben Roethlisberger and having that trust from your quarterback. But to me, he's the number one wide receiver in the National Football League right now.
Yeah, I agree with that notion for this reason. Beyond everything that Damian just said is that you got to give a full whistle-to-whistle effort with Antonio Brown. Him and Ben Roethlisberger are essentially attached on a string. There are routes where the play looks like it's been broken down for 3.5, 4 seconds. Next thing you know, Ben pirouettes in the pocket. Antonio Brown pivots one way, wide open, and he's gone for 6 more points. They're just so dynamic together. Antonio Brown sets the standard.
I just think of, last year in the playoffs against Jacksonville, A.J. Bouye was basically smothering Antonio Brown. And he still found ways to, catch a couple touchdowns in the game. It just shows you the chemistry that, Antonio Brown and Big Ben have together.
Such a technician at the position. Any opening he'll take advantage of, right? And that's why he's so great, because he works at his craft so much and on such a detailed level. I will say this, though. When you talk to defensive backs, the thing that upsets them most when they're assigned to cover a receiver is speed. Like, that's the thing they really hate the most, like the really super elite fast guys. So at this point, go back a couple years and you would have said, Deshaun Jackson is a guy that no defensive back wants to have to cover. I guess T.Y. Hilton's a guy with that kind of speed now. But I guess of the 3 big guys we're talking about, Odell probably has the most raw speed.
Yeah.
So that may be why he's some guy's answer. If you ask a defensive back, you want to try and chase a guy like this around the field all day. But yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong picking Antonio Brown. He is the overall best there is in the game right now.
Patrick Peterson has known how to take those number ones out. 7 years, 7 Pro Bowls for PP. Only Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, and Jim Brown have done that. Good company. Good crew.
Pretty good.
Delta is here to help people in pursuit of their goals. And with the ease of booking travel on the Fly Delta app, pursuing your goals has never been easier. You'll also get notifications as you go, giving you peace of mind throughout your journey.
We debut our 5-in, 5-out series this week. Here's how it works. 20 of the past 22 years, 5 new teams have appeared in the playoffs. Last season, 8 new teams. Based on that, more than 20 of our insiders and analysts voted on 5 teams in, 5 teams out this year. The Texans, Packers, Ravens, 49ers, new to the mix. And today, the Chargers are in. Here's a quick look at the 2017 Chargers.
How do you do it time and time again to me, Chargers?
Snap, hold, kick is tipped, blocked, no good. End of the game.
The kick is up. He's got plenty of distance.
He missed it.
And he missed it. He missed the kick.
We always talk about the tightness, the toughness, the character of our group. It's times like these that it gets tested. I can be sick about it for a little while, but we better get ready to go. We got to get it going in a hurry.
And he is sacked. Ball is out. Scooped up by Melvin Ingram. Touchdown Chargers. From who else? Joey Bosa. Under pressure. And that pass is picked off. Desmond King, 25, 30. Cuts inside of the 35, 40, 45, 50. No one in front of him. He's going to go to the end zone.
We were down and out, and we bounced back, and we're still bouncing back. We're not out of the hole yet.
If you could pick one that you didn't want to play, you'd keep the Los Angeles Chargers out of your stadium.
So 3 things to keep in mind from the Chargers offseason. The biggest signing you're looking at, 3-time Pro Bowl center Mike Pouncey. Los Angeles gave the former Dolphin a 2-year, $15 million deal in March. And most experts are saying they're agreeing with this one, that the 17th pick to go get Derwin James was one of the biggest steals of this draft. James, who many had going top 10 out of Florida State, expected to start at strong safety in week 1. But just less than a month ago, tight end Hunter Henry suffered a season-ending torn ACL. Henry's 12 career receiving touchdowns have led all Chargers over the past 2 seasons. All right, Damian, this has been your squad, man.
I've been on them. Squad up. I've been on them. Squad up.
We want to see how far you can take it. Here we go.
Okay. Week 1, Chiefs. Going with the dub right there against the Chiefs. Breaking in a new quarterback. At the Bills. All types of quarterback question marks. Even though traveling cross country, I still got the Los Angeles Chargers getting that one. At the Rams. That's going to be a tough one. This Rams team is legit. I'm going to get them a loss right there. This is another interesting one. Jimmy Garoppolo still haven't lost a game yet.
That's right.
But I'm going to give the Chargers a win right there. The Raiders. John Gruden.
Oh,
right there.
The anti-Charger start right
unusually hot start.
It is unusual, but I'm on.
Right.
I'm on them. At the Browns.
Only team that the Browns have beaten in 2 years.
I know.
Chargers. All right.
Get it.
Okay. Titans. Things start to get a little funky, okay?
All right.
Every once in a while.
So at the Seahawks.
Dog days and whatever.
Yeah, the Seahawks. You face a little adversity.
Following the bye week right there.
Yeah. Still a tough place to play.
Yep.
Yeah.
At the Raiders.
Are you showing love to these two, or are you just saying a little cold streak, right?
Yeah, you're going, the season is, you're going to have little flows and stuff like that. So, so Broncos.
Home against the Broncos.
Win.
Could be a big game at that point in the season.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Cardinals. At home against the Cardinals. Win.
Right now we're talking about this
one
of the year.
At the Steelers. That's a big one.
It's a playoff preview.
I'm going to give them a loss right here.
Could affect seeding.
Bengals. Win. I think at this time, the Chiefs going to start to have things figured out, really. I'm going to give a loss right here. Ravens. Win.
That might be for the division right there.
Yep. Right there.
11-5.
11-5.
They'll take that. I bet
they will
sign
take
up
that.
for that right now.
They will absolutely sign up for it.
Steady production from the kicker. Great pass rush. That's going to catalyze.
Right. Elite players on the edge.
Yep. Yeah. Kind of crazy, too, to think about. 4 of their 7 losses last year or by a field goal or less.
Yep. Need a kicker.
Need a kicker.
Caleb Sturgis, we're looking right at you.
What do you think? Is he the one?
Him or Roberto Aguayo both signed this offseason. Before you laugh, listen, sometimes a kicker needs a new start more than anything, a fresh start. But if you study that spot, this team has a chance. As Damian said, forecasted 11-5. It's very possible.
I wasn't laughing. I didn't laugh. Did you laugh? No, we laughed.
Nothing fun about that.
We take it very seriously.